So we go into some details. I will show you now how to become a psychiatrist and do mind reading and predict the future. So mental health aspect is quite neglected, and we know that many colleagues and also many patients are a little bit afraid of it, but it's quite important out of some reasons. I mentioned already that they are very frequently, even after the injuries have vanished, psychological impact can be lifelong. Yeah? We even know now by research that there is a traumatization of the second generation. That means if a person comes home and is traumatized, he is in a way very confused, and this is also confusing for the other family members. Yeah, they get indirectly traumatized, so it's very important to recognize that. And as you have seen in the Cypriot ruling, the indirect victims in this case were also the ones that were respected because of psychological suffering they still have after 20 years, after a long period when the case was submitted, and even now it's present. So they are quite important. So many people don't like to speak about it. In some cultures it's stigmatizing when you have a psychological problem. And it's very clear to make it clear to your victims, to your clients, also to yourself, that this is a normal reaction. And we'll see now why it's a normal reaction to have some form of reaction after extreme life events. It's also important because if you have a psychological impact, psychological trauma, it can impact on your reporting. As mentioned, you are maybe not coherent, you don't tell everything immediately, you cannot remember some things, you might contradict yourself as a normal witness would already do, and it also you can also create unnecessary distress. This is the reason why the European Framework Directive is so strict on giving this information, trainings to everyone who is in contact with a victim, because many people are distressed by an event, but they get really sick, really traumatized if the environment doesn't react properly. Yeah? I mentioned already if someone has been, let's say, sexually attacked after going out in the evening, and now it's not only happened that this is obviously a bad event and it's normal to have some reaction because you might have been killed, but it's also a problem because if the environment, now if let's say mother immediately says you shouldn't go there, you are stupid, I always told you not to do it, because she's concerned and frightened. I mentioned that example before, but this is really quite important to keep in mind what happens later, how we react when someone comes back from a bad situation, and that means everyone, from the prosecutor to the police to the medical doctor, is relevant. And sequels can be really lifelong in the worst case. It can be that you have a confusion, that you have a stress state for a few hours or a few days, but under bad conditions, that means if you are vulnerable, if the event is very bad, and or if you get the wrong form of reaction by your family or by the environment, by society, for example, if suffering is not recognized. If someone says, oh, just shut up, don't talk about it, it never happened, then people can be really not only confused, but become traumatized by an event. And you might have to describe the setting. When you do an examination, you should note down what the setting was, because if there is a translator you cannot trust, and this is documented later, then there's an explanation why a person didn't report something. So you should document where you did the interview, cultural factors probably, who translated, what the communication was, time frame, and so on. If it's a forensic setting. If you just need a basic, simple finding, you might not have to do all these details, but if it's a serious case, you definitely have to. In general, it's important to look into the context of culture, because this shapes how people react. What they suffer, what is very bad for them. In some cultures, Sexual violence is especially bad. In others, it's also bad, but not exactly in the same way. So it's important to look and describe in the culture. And then we also have reactions that are typical in a culture, and we'll talk about that later. And it's important that the person has a feeling that he has been heard. Yeah? That you don't go through a checklist and say, oh, okay, this happened, and no, don't stop now, I just want to have this information. But it's good, you know, if you think about if you are with a child, and the child has been hit by some other child, yeah? What it needs to get out of this fear and shock and fright, what would you do? Would you say, no, shut up and leave me alone now? Or what would you do when let's say your son has been beaten up by a neighbor's son? Yes? Show him, yeah? So with children you can take them, yeah, but with grown adults they wouldn't really understand that probably, depending on culture. But you would at least give them the feeling that they have been listened to. Yeah? They have been listened to, they have been able to tell what has happened, they have been confirmed, respected, and so this is already very therapeutic. So even as if you work in the police, if you work with a victim of crime, if you work as a prosecutor or a lawyer, not only as a psychotherapist, as a medical doctor, this simple thing is already something very important and also psychotherapeutic. It means I have been listened to, I have been respected, I have been taken serious. And this is already, as I said, a very therapeutic step, so you can in a way already become a little bit of a psychiatrist if you like. Doesn't mean you can already read minds, that's a problem. Yeah? Good. Then a lot of things that happen in the environment now can create a special state of stress. Yeah? That means suffering, but also confusion, memory problems, all sorts of problems. And that is when there is a signal, that is a situation that is similar as the situation when it happened. Yeah? For example, let's take an example. We also have in our bodies special programs that come up automatically when we are threatened. Yeah? We tried it for a time with workshops. We had a collaboration with the zoo in Vienna, and we got a tiger, you know, a tiger, and it was tame. Yeah? And it came, no, I'm telling you a story, you don't have to believe me. Yeah? But we got this tiger, imagine, and he came into the workshop and he nearly attacked everyone. And people didn't know if the tiger was dangerous or not, if they would be killed. So what would be the normal reaction if suddenly you have a tiger here looking at you and he nearly attacks you? What happens in your body? A lot of things, your body suddenly starts a survival program that prepares you for one of three possible reactions. One is to fight. Yeah? If you are a big group and the tiger is small, you can fight him. Now, if you are attacked by a group of people, yeah, and beaten up or violated or tortured, whatever, then this is not an option. You are too weak and you will be probably killed. Yeah? So if you have too strong a fight response, you will not survive. So the second option is to escape, to run away. Yeah? Then you need to mobilize all energy in your body to run away, maybe out of this room, yeah, if possible, and to hope you are fast enough. And we know in medicine now we have a lot of research on stress reactions, and we know there are more than 400 things happening in the body, yeah, that squeeze all energy, that focus the body on survival. You have a fast heartbeat, yeah, the muscle tension, yeah, the muscles tense that you can jump better. Yeah. The heart breathing is faster, you start sweating to cool down your body, like when you have a car, yeah, it needs cooling. Yeah. So if your body is very active, it needs cooling, sweating. Your immune system changes, yeah, and you even have changes in the way your genes work. It's epigenetic. You know, something changes in the body, which we only know for the last 5 years. So the whole change is dramatic, and it focuses all energy in the body on one thing, to survive. Yeah? To have that energy available to run, to fight, and then we have a third option we have inbuilt in our brains, else we wouldn't be here, yeah? Because sometimes the animals are too fast, or the door is closed and you cannot run away, or you can also not fight, and then we have a third very efficient pattern built in that is playing dead. Yeah? We have a reaction where you switch off. Yeah? My body is here and my mind is somewhere else. Yeah? We all can do it. Yeah? When I talk to you now, 10 hours about brain structures, neurotransmitters in the brain and so on, especially for the lawyers and non-medical people, yeah, and you are not permitted to run away, yeah? Then your body is here and your mind will be, I think, where will it be? Somewhere else probably, yeah, with your family, with the next holiday. So you learn, your body learns how to play that. Yeah? You usually see this when I can see when you dissociate now. So if you get bored, yeah, we learn that in school. If you have very bad teaching, then we cannot go away, and then our brain protects us against boredom, deadly boredom. So you can see that breathing gets shallow, the eyes defocus. You see that also in war when you work with soldiers, yeah, when they go in this protective reflex and the eyes defocus. Yeah, so our brain switches off in a protective mode, playing dead. This is what you see especially in people who have been in a dangerous situation for a long time. Children who have been abused, you see it in people in an abusive relationship when violence happens every day. And you also see it, of course, with people who have been tortured, let's say, in prison, or have been hostages, who have been abducted and are hostages. You see that they learn to switch off. Yeah? So all these basic reactions are very normal and they are very dramatic. And we know now that in these very dangerous situations, the brain does something special. It says, now this was really dangerous, and you shouldn't forget this simply. Yeah? So even if this is over and you have survived, this is very dangerous. This is a tiger. He might come again, and then he might eat you. This time you have to survive.